high school. I lived out in the country by comparison and went to Tucker High School. And as some of you know, Andrew Flake, he and I were in the same class. So this is a really great area, and what happens here matters to me. And it's exciting that professionally I get to be involved in some of the things going on in the area. So I'm a big believer in maps, in photographs, and every picture tells a story, right? Because Rod Stewart said that, right? So I'm going to go through a lot of slides and share a lot of information. I think some of it will be new to you, some new perspectives, and I'm happy to answer questions when we get through some of this. If you just got a burning one, I'm okay with you to interrupt me, but we've got a lot of good stuff, and I can pause. So a lot of people think that a community improvement district is part of a city. It's not. It's wholly independent of a city government. It's wholly independent of a county government. We are an act of legislation, so we don't have a business license because we're a quasi-government organization. So what that means is that we collect taxes. If you look here on this map, all of these dark areas, this is 285, these are existing community improvement districts in the metro area. And they've all been organized by commercial property owners. And the tax base is collected from commercial property owners only. So all of you who are residential never pay into a CID. That's against the law. You can't do it. So what the commercial property owners do is they get together and they say, hey, there's an issue that we'd like to address. And they elect to have their taxes increased, just by a small bit, between 3 mils and typically 5 mils. That money is collected and it's used to maintain improvements in the area. So here's the Cumberland CID. That's the oldest community improvement district in the state. We've been there about 30 years. People wonder why the Braves Stadium went there, or whether you like that it went there or not. They're the ones that leverage to make that happen. You got the perimeter area. It looks pretty good. If you see the signs are hanging over there, a little emblem on there, that's the perimeter CID, and they're great. And they do a lot of good stuff. You go to Midtown, you see the Midtown Alliance sign, just see the artwork around there. That's the Midtown Alliance. So the idea is that if an area is not safe, attractive, easy to get in and out of, people don't want to spend their time there. And if they don't spend their time there, they don't spend their money there, and that hurts businesses. So I report to a board of directors that represent the commercial property owners. So some of you may know Charles DeWitt. He led Resurgence Bank, and now he started a new bank called Tandem Bank. He's on the board of directors. Brad, who lives over off of Vista Road. He owns both of the Chick-fil-A's, the owner-operator there. He's on the board. Chip Cofer's on the board. We had a representative for Northlake Malls on the board. And so the tax money that's collected, we use that and leverage it to get OPM, other people's money. So for example, we recently received a grant for a project in downtown Tucker. The grant we received was for $80,000. We had to put $20,000 in to get the $80,000. That's a pretty good return. We've had other times we even get greater return. So we put together what we call shovel-ready projects, right? Many of you have kids, right? Hey mom, hey dad, I need some money. Okay, that discussion doesn't always go well, right? But if there's a plan that you can look at, then you're willing to invest. And that's exactly what the county and the state and others are willing to do. If there's a plan, they will invest and they will give you the money. So CIDs work diligently to make sure we've got a plan and we align it with the right people that ignites their passions, and they say, yeah, here's a check, that's awesome, go do it. So here is a zoom in of the map, and here's the city of Tucker. This is our boundary here. We are in some of unincorporated Tucker, unincorporated DeKalb, excuse me. We formed in 2013, City of Tucker didn't form until 2016. As you can see, we've got DeKalb County here, and this is your area that you're concerned with. It's unincorporated. Here's another little map of our boundaries. So all the commercial property owners in here can elect to join. And once they join, if they sell the property, it doesn't matter. They're in. So we'll always have the tax base for that, which is pretty good. So on the Tucker end of things, in the downtown area, we maintain the landscaping on Main Street. We maintain 33 miles of street sweeping throughout the city. We've got 6 additional police officers patrolling the area every month. So Tucker made a press release about how crime had dropped by, I think, 23% in the area. That's great, but what they didn't include in the press release is that you've also got a CID here and a CID over there that's helping fund public safety, because the property owners want people to feel safe. So we're able to do those types of things. This is another view of our footprint. You've got 285 here, the Vista Road, Lawrenceville Highway, 78. And this is what we collect. It's not a lot, it's 3 mils. So 0.003 is tax assessment. So how does that break down? So if a property is valued at $100, excuse me, $1 million, the tax assessment on that, they only assess it at 40%, so at $400,000. So at 3 mils, that means for $1 million property, we get $1,200. So it is not a lot of money. So we have to get a lot of property owners together to pool it to make a difference. And we do, and we're really able to leverage things. We're regulated because it's taxpayer money, but we don't have quite all the thickness that a county or a city government has, and we're a little more agile, and we can move things pretty quickly. So, our focus is creating a vibrant, connected, and thriving community. So some of that means looking far into the past and the distance, and some of that means looking very much at the details. So, 50 years ago, GDOT did a great thing. They created 285. Okay. Imagine that. So if you're over 50, you're older than 285. You're older than the perimeter. I guess you can brag about that or be sorry about it, but it's a reality. Here's a photo of 1972 of Northlake Mall, and there's 285. What's very interesting is the residential area was already built out, much like it is today. Maybe you look up the other end. This is Spaghetti Junction in 1972. So it was really just kind of one piece of spaghetti and folded it. But it's interesting to see how things have changed. What people don't think about, though, is that without 285, there would have been no Northlake. The investors and developers would follow the pavement somewhere else. The same thing with Perimeter. It was built the same year as Northlake Mall. And Cumberland on the other end. They follow the pavement. Realtors tell you that, retail follows rooftops. They do, but the pavement has to be there first. And these are our ports of entry to society today. Okay, so here's an ad from when Northlake Mall first opened in October of 1974, I believe it was. So you've got that there. It's, 1971, pardon me. So we're coming up on its 50-year anniversary. There's the facade today. And this, if you saw in the newspaper, is what's going to happen with the Sears end of that property. Until this release came out, I got asked every day 4 or 5 times a day. Coach is in here, he asks me all the time, what's going on with the mall, man? What's going on with the mall? So the guys who own the mall, they're doing the same thing they did up in Nashville. They bought a mall called 100 Oaks Mall. They leased out the entire top floor to Vanderbilt Medical. They kept the bottom floor retail and restaurants, and the office space on the top feeds the restaurants and the retail on the bottom, and they built out parcels. So the days when your mothers and you as teenagers were shopping at Northlake Mall and getting cakes at Rich's at North DeKalb Mall, that's kind of gone. That's not the daytime base. That's not what restaurants and retailers want. They want office because they know that if you make a certain dollar amount, you're carrying that spending capital with you to the workforce, to the workplace, and you're going to spend that. So the idea that Emory Healthcare is coming in here with people who are going to be spending money in the restaurants and in the retail will add to the vibrancy of the area. So it's not going to be a mall like we had in the past, but it is going to maintain the name Northlake, as that area is kind of inbred and such. Here's a photo of the inside. You may have seen this as well, right? So I guess this might have been where the Dalton books was, maybe, and Sears down here. But it's an idea of a kind of an enclosed complex, right, where they can walk out and buy lunch, or they can walk out and go to a gym and go back to work. So, but the nice thing is that on the weekends the parking lot is somewhat empty because you don't have the office services there. So this was the first of their announcements. 1,600 employees coming. So that's pretty exciting. And this is just outside your area, right across the street, in the city of Tucker. So let's talk about shopping malls for a moment. The brutal facts of what's going on with shopping malls. So for 100 years, Sears Roebuck catalog was the equivalent of Amazon, right? Somehow they just missed the divide and didn't transfer. It was the exact same thing. So Sears is gone. Here's some of the maps, some of the malls in the area. And if I had to kind of assess them and figure out which ones need triage and which ones are on life support, North DeKalb, Gwinnett Place. You know, my wife calls it, are we going to go see a movie at the Dystopian Mall when we go there to see it? Northlake's hanging on. It still has one anchor, but we know the foreseeable future is that property is going to transition. Town Center, you think of that as doing okay, but it's not doing great because of the retail mall just above it and the Shops of Atlanta. Really nice place up there. Mall of Georgia's doing great because it's so far out, and Phipps and Lenox and Perimeter are doing pretty good. But here's why they're doing well. There's Phipps, there's Lenox, somewhere in here. There we go, Lenox. Look what they're surrounded by. It's not mid-century residential, it's high-density office. Those are the folks who are fueling the restaurants. Those are the folks who are fueling the retail and buying things before and after work on their lunch break. That's what's driving it. That's what's going to come to building a hotel on top of the mall down there. Remember when the King and Queen building were really the only thing you saw when you were going on top in 285? They stood out. Well, now they're just one element in the skyline with all of the office out there. And there we go, they call it Hill just across the way. All those people eat, they all spend money. So when we look at this, you look at the malls out there, and you think Mall of Georgia, it's got such a wide footprint. It's pulling in people from rural areas to spend their money and to have a social experience in a mall. You know, we're on the periphery where that's kind of been eaten up, and these centralized malls in the center, where you've got the office, they're drawing in all the employee and workforce area there. And we're simply not doing that in North DeKalb or in Northlake or even in Place. The other factor is transit, right? You got 2 transit stations right there at Perimeter Center. You also have them there in Buckhead and Lenox. I don't know if anybody's followed the building of the State Farm property in Dunwoody that they have built nearly on top of the rail line. They have their own point of entry. So even if no one from State Farm ever uses that, they now have some of the most valuable real estate in Metro Atlanta. People want access. I talked to somebody who was looking to come to Northlake, and they were asking about transit options. And unfortunately, I had to look down the street from the building grade and point at the bus stop. And that's just not it. That's just not enough, because the county and MARTA can move that bus stop. They want a physically placed structure that they know that that's a transit component that's going to be there for economic development. So my wife often asks, well, how do we get a good restaurant in the area? So I said, well, what restaurant do you want? And she likes Zoe's Kitchen. Has anybody been to Zoe's? Yeah. Okay, she loves Zoe's, but we live just across the Gwinnett County line, and we don't have a Zoe's. So I got what you need to bring a restaurant in the area. So Zoe wants a daytime population with a mile between 6,000 and 12,000 people. They want a median household income of $85,000 and college graduates of 60% in the area. Okay, well, that may sound like your neighborhood. However, the daytime population is the key, right? Because you've got to have people who have that disposable income to spend, who are going to do that in an economic recession, they're still going to want to spend that money. Some of the other factors is you need to have one of these 3 things: office buildings, health club, hospital, high-end, high-frequency specialty retail, high-end specialty grocery store, high-density daytime residential population. So you might be able to get 2, but you got to get all 3. So has there been kind of revitalization of what used to be called Loman's Plaza, right? Mm-hmm. And Togo Hill, right? And why do you think that has been the case? Money. What's on this list that's right around there now? Hospital, right, right. And so what does hospital do? It invites in the health club, right? It invites in the high-end grocery. And so they just kind of feed off of each other. And you, as residents of the area, you're not the primary audience, but you benefit from it. So patterns, let's look at some patterns in your area. So this is a little bit older, but this is all of the single-family housing permits in the Atlanta region from 2016 through the first quarter of 2017. And this little red around here is DeKalb County. So you can see where people are building. They're building in Forsyth, they're building in Cherokee, they're building in Cobb. You've got some stuff here in Brookhaven, they're pushing real hard. And you've got some stuff on the border in Gwinnett. but not a lot going on in DeKalb compared to what was going on in the 1970s. So here is a map showing those with at least over age 25 with at least a 4-year degree. So here's DeKalb County. You can see out here Bartow County in the rural areas, not a lot. Some of that's a matter of density. It's not just a matter of not having a college degree, at least a 4-year degree. But here we come in, here's DeKalb County. Look at these patterns. They follow where the building is, right? The education follows those same patterns. We come a little bit closer. There's your neighbors over in Smoke Rise. There's the Gwinnett County line. Right? We're coming in here. And we're sitting right about here. So just as a point of reference, out of the 3,621 people in this census tract, I know it's kind of nerdy, but it's a number, 70% have a 4-year degree. That's the kind of thing businesses want to see because it fits where they want to invest so they can get more money out of your pocket. Okay. We look regionally again, you can see where that's at. This is from 2012, this is median household income in the area based on block groups. So again, we've got DeKalb County, and where do you see the most money? Again, it's where the houses are. It's where the education is, right? So that's significant. But again, we see, when we zoom in here, we've got some streets, so there's 85, there's North Cherry Hills, here's Claremont, and La Vista. Now this color here says 82,000, but I looked it up and nearly all of these are well over $100,000. So that's in that area. But this is interesting. Why is this area low? Right, here's 285, this is Northlake Festival. You've got several large apartment complexes in there. And you need apartment complexes, but typically the income in apartment complexes is going to be lower. So it doesn't necessarily hurt the entire area as far as getting a business to come in, but they do look at these types of things. They typically don't look at a whole zip code because that's so huge. Okay, so I've been saying a lot. Is this helpful information?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so here we go. We pull out and look at a bigger view. All right. So let's talk about the future. Let's talk about projected growth. Is anybody in here familiar with the Atlanta Regional Commission?
Yep.
Yeah, Beth and I heard from the other day at an event. We're taking a course together, Leadership at CAB. It's really exciting. So, in 2015, the Atlanta Regional Commission, which gets federal funding to do these studies, and they determine where the money's going to go in the area, they did a study to look at population. Any idea what percentage DeKalb County is going to reach by 2040? It's going to increase by 22%. So we're going to go from 718,000 to 843,000 residents. Our neighbor to the west, to the east, Gwinnett County, it's going to grow by 55%. So the next time you count 10 Gwinnett County license plates, imagine 5 more in 20 years. That's what's going to happen. So I took a map from Gwinnett County's transportation master plan that they had to try to predict and see where's this traffic going to come through in DeKalb County. How is this going to impact us? How is this going to impact the CID, the commercial property owners that I represent? So I found 9 points of entry along the boundary here with the city of Tucker. 85 on the north, 75 on the south. And looking at all these roads and the classification of what's coming through, Gwinnett County is totally dependent on cutting through DeKalb County to get to Atlanta, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So here are the current GDOT traffic counts. Again, coming through Tucker, coming into this area. So this is 285. Oops, big reveal was there, sorry. This is 285, La Vista, Lawrenceville Highway. So if you think about 78, we've got 80,000 cars a day. By the time you get to Stone Mountain Park, it's 91,000. By the time you nearly get to 285, we're at 117,000 cars a day. Okay. So 2015 was a few years ago, so I adjusted, I got a little liberal, I reduced the numbers by 10%, and this is the projected increase that we would see at that time. Right? So we've gone from 117,000 cars in 78 to 186,000 cars. That's nearly what we're seeing in some areas on 285. These roads cannot handle that. They cannot handle that volume. It's just not possible. So what do? I talked about we get grants and leverage money. We can't leverage that kind of money to fix this problem. And you can't tell Gwinnett not to build because they're going to build. It's property rights. They're going to build. DeKalb's going to build as well. So GDOT has invested in what's called a major mobility improvement program. I'm looking at my clock here just to make sure we've got some time. So they're going to put in express lanes across the top end of I-285. Have anybody been following that in the news? Okay. So they just had a public information house 2 nights ago, and I'm going to be speaking to you, so I went and got a bunch of information. Those are great meetings to go to because all the experts are in the room, and they'll answer all the questions you have. If they don't know, they will tell you that they don't know. And you stay on enough, all of them will give you a good answer. So the idea of the express lanes is that it's a managed lane, so it's a peach pass. You get in it, but if everybody in the front row's in it, and it starts to slow down to about 45 miles an hour, and I want to get in it, I'm going to see the dollar sign go up. It's going to change. It's going to try to discourage me from getting in the lane price-wise so that you guys can get what you're going on time. And so that's going to fluctuate throughout the day to keep the traffic flow going. So this is what 400 is going to look like when this is finished in 2032. So this is another direction. This is headed. This is Ashford Dunway, right here. So these are elevated express lanes, 2 lanes in both directions. You got to have a peach pass to go in these. These will go across all in the top end of 285. Okay, this is from the video. You can see this is online. I just took screenshots of the video that they got, right? Okay, so here's New Peachtree Road. And so right here is the door of Elmarta Station. So you'll be able to get off at the door of Elmarta Station, which is good. That's a very good thing. Here we're approaching I-85 and Spaghetti Junction. And here's what Spaghetti Junction is going to look like. It's going to have a lot more spaghetti added to it. Here's Shanley Tucker. If you live near Shanley Tucker, it's really going to be flyover country. These are going to go over. There will be no access to the express lanes at Shanley Tucker. Now the challenge we ran into with GDOT was, sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and so the north end of town was really talking about getting access. But this side of DeKalb, nobody was really paying much attention. So we started looking at the numbers and we realized there was going to be a 6-mile stretch with no access into the express lane. So remember when I said that Northlake Mall would not have been there if there was not 285? Well, imagine 6 miles of DeKalb County being cut off from the economic opportunity of this express lane system. So we spoke with GDOT. Oh, here's Henderson Mill, right, coming under. It's going to drop down the grade. It won't be elevated. And there's Evans Road here. But they're going to be in the center lanes. This will go all the way down to I-20. There's Henderson Road. If you live near Henderson Road, the bridge is going to be moved because they're going to have to widen it for the additional lanes. You're not losing lanes, you're getting new lanes. But in order to widen it, it was going to take 9 months to replace the bridge. So they just decided we don't want to cut people out of a bridge for 9 months. We're just going to buy the land next door and move it over 40 or 50 feet. And that way they can build a new one, close the old one, open the new one, and it won't inconvenience your life too much. Okay. So on this side, what we worked with them is making Northlake Parkway an express lane access point. They are just 0.3 of a mile apart. Anybody have any idea how many cars use that exit a day?
I do.
How many?
No, I mean, I use it.
Oh, use it, yeah. Oh, I think we all love it. It's like that. If you use it, it's a secret one. It's awesome. Just 14,000 cars compared to 51,000 cars that use the Vista. So it's kind of minimal. So they're going to replace these bridges. So what we asked them to do was, this is the plan for Redan Road. Redan Road is just an overpass right now. This is where you'll get into the Indian Creek Water Station. But you're going to come through the center of that bridge and exit. So this is a really good thing. So you'll be able to get directly into the express lanes from Northlake Parkway. So it's a big change, but if we didn't ask for this change, we'd really be cut off from the whole system, the whole network. You wouldn't be able to get in until a merge point further up the line. But now you'll have direct access. So you can get on here and go straight to a Braves game. That's exciting stuff. Okay, so speaking of going to a Braves game, all the mayors and the CIDs from Smyrna to Tucker got together and said, hey, GDOT's doing this. is this really the best use of money? Is this going to benefit us? How can we do this? We really can't control it, but how can we benefit? And so we looked at light rail. What would light rail cost to put across this network? That was going to be $4 billion. That was more than could be afforded. So the next option is something called BRT, or express buses. So we put together a feasibility study, and we looked at the potential stops of where this would run. So the idea is, you get on a bus in the Northlake area, the next stop would be Dorville Station, and it might just make that loop all day, and that's all it does. Or it may go to each one of these stops, but it never stops anywhere else. That's it. And so it's in the express lanes, it's consistent, it has the same timing of rail for the most part, except, traffic's going to slow down a little bit, but it keeps everybody connected. What's exciting about this is across 3 counties and 7 cities and 4 CIDs. That's never been done before. So cross-jurisdictionally, people are beginning to work together. They're working with cities. It's a great thing. So these are some of the vehicles that we looked at to price out and see what would be appropriate for this service. So this is still in the early stages, but we're recognizing we gotta close the gap between people and where they want to go. It just can't take as long to get places as it has in the past. Another form of connection is trails. So the city of Tucker just funded a trail study, and they're already beginning to work on that. And I want to tell you a little bit about the trails. So this is Midvale Road. So they want to make sure that there's a wide sidewalk on a trail under Midvale Road. Excuse me, not under Midvale Road, under 285. This is the bridge I was mentioning in Northlake Parkway. We've requested from GDOT that they build that out and put in a shared use path that's 12 feet wide. So you can ride a bike, so you can get across that corridor. So it's no longer this sea of concrete that separates one side from the other unless you're in a vehicle. This is 285, and this is Crescent Center Boulevard. So Tucker's kind of over, we're in this area, the Northlake side here, and we're looking at putting a connection underneath that would parallel the railroad tracks. So all of this would leave the city and then eventually connect into the Peachtree Greenway up through the Mercer property, potentially. So just showing some arrows in the map of the general direction it would go. And connecting into this area as well. And trails really drive economic development. They really do. It's surprising how much a trail drives economic development, but it does. So rail. Let's talk about rail for just a moment. How many of you saw the study about rail, commuter rail in the area? Okay, so GDOT did a study, the Georgia Department of Transportation, on commuter rail. They were looking at high-speed rail. This is multi-jurisdictional across states from Hartsville, Jackson to Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, when we say high-speed, in town, it can't be high-speed, right? It's got to be your traditional speed. But once you get out of the country, they're looking at the speeds of a train in Asia or Europe, 200 miles an hour. And they can build these wide curves in them so you're not taking dangerous curves, and you can get places really, really quick. So Tier 1 of that study is wrapping up. And it presents 2 possible routes to the airport for the Atlanta approach. One goes through Swanee and Dorville and follows the existing line down. The other follows the CSX tracks and has a stop in Lawrenceville and has a stop in Tucker in Northlake. It would also go through the Emory campus. So there's some benefits to the second of those 2 options. If they follow the existing line through Dorville, it's a little bit redundant. There's already a way to get to the airport from Dorville. Now you saw the building going up in Swanee, so there's a pull for that up there. But the long distance of this goes out, either both of them go out to the Athens campus, University of Georgia. So imagine being able to get dropped off at Northlake and ride a train to the airport, or people flying into Atlanta being able to get off at Northlake and come to a convention. So as far as economic development, it really gives some great options. Or if Emory was to push and say, hey, we'd like a stop here. We'd like you to put a stop on the line since you're coming from our campus. So some good options. It's phase 2 of that study that is not yet funded that will determine which of these 2 routes you go with. So speaking of that route, one of the things we're looking at is putting in an overpass at the railroad tracks at Montreal Road. If any of you ever go that way, it backs up, and they're cutting through Fraser, they're cutting through Pangbourne, they're cutting through all these other places. If we can get an overpass there, It's good for industry, it's good for the fire department that's there. You know, when somebody calls 911 and there's a train, the ambulance cannot get to you until that train moves. And the train is unfortunately not going to move for you, you're going to die. But we're looking at doing that as well. So those are some of the things that are going on in the area, and I know your focus is a city. But a city's infrastructure. A city is how do you leverage these dollars to get the things in your area that you need. And these are some of the things that we're doing in the CID. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
All of this progress that you're speaking of, especially with the rails and stuff like that, who do we have to write? How do we get this moving forward?
So the question was, who do you have to write to get this stuff moving forward? Well, that's a great question.
Who do you have to know?
There's a time to move those things. Who do you have to know? Yeah. There's a time to write and a time not to. And right now for the rail, it's not quite time to do that. But when it is, we will make sure there's a public campaign and everybody knows. But a lot of it is legislators because they ultimately control the state dollars.
Okay.
So
Because I remember in Gwinnett County last year, they turned down the MARTA extension.
they did. So MARTA got turned down. It was really political for why it got turned down.
Okay.
So they knew there was going to be a high turnout in opposition to the president and in favor of Stacey Abrams, and that was going to bring out a large group of Democrats. And so there was folks who were concerned that if they put that on the ballot as well, that they might lose their seats in office. Well, all those guys lost their seats in office anyway. So what they're doing instead is they put it on a March ballot, and nobody showed up for a March ballot. So it'll be on the 2020 ballot, most likely, and I think that the political will is there for that to pass. However, heavy rail costs $250 million a mile. So it's going to cost $1 billion to get from the Doraville station to Jimmy Carter, where Gwinnett County's already purchased land for a station. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a while.
Okay.
So who did you say is behind the two high-speed rail lines potential going to Charlotte? Is it GDOT or?
It's a federally funded study, and GDOT was the one who was given the money to manage the project, but it's multi-state.
Okay. I knew that wasn't county.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm curious, like looking at that top end project across 7 cities and 4 counties, whatever. So that just makes it more attractive for people to live in Gwinnett and come in and be able to use on that. So how do you engage these other counties to also participate in that development? Because it makes it easier for them to live way out there and get in and use our services.
Yeah, so there's a new authority that's been established called the ATL. And there was a senator named Brandon Beach, and he and some other guys got together and they said, how long would it take us to ride from Cobb County to go see the Gwinnett Braves? And they took a film crew with them, and they wanted to do it on public transit, and I think it took them 4 hours. And they were just blown away. So they said, we got to fix this. We've got to have some unity. And so they created this authority that has representatives from all the counties who are appointed, and they are looking at uniting all of the different projects together. And so when you see a MARTA bus, you're not seeing an ATL logo on it. And they're trying to pull all that together. So some of the things I didn't talk about was the express lanes are going to go up 400 as well. And the BRT is going to go up there. You know, there's questions about whether Cobb has the political will for a vote for MARTA. They didn't think they did. So Gwinnett County built it in for them to vote, but Cobb County said they can do it within a limited taxation district, so they can kind of carve out the people that they thought would vote no. So they can get it, but what that does is it puts more financial burden on the folks who said yes. So we'll see what goes on there. But yeah, you're asking the right question.
Yeah, by the way, Matthew, I'll try to do this so you might repeat the question.
Yeah.
Thank you, excellent presentation, by the way, appreciate it. My question is the assumption, usually if I'm not mistaken, it's like 90% of the money to build a highway comes from the federal government, and it's like maybe 10%, I may be wrong on this, comes from the state, maybe local governments. Is that something model going to be part of these transportation, these high-end transportations? I'm sure, and my point is, can that be realistically with the federal government's deficit and budget deficit and the kind of the environment at the federal government level to sort of maybe curtail funding, perhaps? Is that still an assumptive model realistic?
That is a great question. Yeah, so MARTA, when you ride MARTA, and you pay, that only pays for 17% more. The rest of it is all through taxation. Public transit is not sustainable through fares, and in Europe, the states support that. So it is a lot of federal money, and there is local matching. So, and a couple of points on that. So for the express lanes, the money has been allocated for that, and they have gotten outside investment in it. So they have a time period that stuff has to be built and getting revenue to pay those investors back. For what we're talking about with the mayors across the top end of the CIDs, funding for that has not yet been figured out. However, because we were able to get GDOT to leverage and give us an express lane exit, that lowered the cost on our end by about $40 million, right? Because now we've got a direct access point, not only for you as drivers, but for any buses that would use that. So, yeah, and as far as political will for that, that fluctuates all the time. Right? Yeah, so that's a question I can't answer, but it's a valid question. John?
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. One thing that I think maybe our audience will have to hear about a little bit is, you said that the CID is actually separate from a city, but how does a city work with a CID? And it seems to me, just from my observations, that frequently CIDs are within cities. So how do the two work together, and what's the relationship?
Yeah, perfect, okay. So although we are independent, DeKalb County has a representative on the board, and the city of Tucker has a representative on the board. They have to be a commercial property owner in the area, and they're appointed. So Commissioner Jester has appointed Brad Spratt on the board, and Mayor Frank Gottman has appointed Barry Schreck on the board. We partner with the city of Tucker all the time. They and DeKalb County are our biggest partners. So if I have an idea of something that I think we need to do, I'll go to the city of Tucker and say, hey, this is going to be great for both of us, right? And if they agree, we share funding on those types of things. We're able to, if I get a property owner who calls me, I call the city and things get done. So we work really, really well together. I typically go to most of the city council meetings in the city of Tucker. It's local, it's helpful. I watch the zoning, I work with city staff. All these plans the city of Tucker just did, either myself or a coworker was on the committee for that, so we're ensuring that the transportation made sense, the trails came where we wanted to come, so we have a lot of influence, it's mutual respect, and it works out really well. And I would say that the majority of the areas, CIDs fluctuate. Some are totally oppositional to the city governments, and they're in a lot of conflict because they feel like they have their little kingdom, especially those that had a lot of money before a city came along. But the model in most of the cab is you work with them, right? They're your partners, and we do a lot of good stuff.
So as a follow-up, how is the relationship with the cabs on getting things done?
Yeah. So the relationship with the cab is pretty good, and I would say that the relationship with the cab is pretty good because the relationship with the folks in Tucker with the cab was good before Tucker became a city. You read a lot about the good things going on in Tucker, but a lot of that started years ago. Tucker just put out a press release about some sidewalks coming. They're the ones carrying that off the finish line, over the finish line. That was a project with the Atlanta Regional Commission of DeKalb County that started years ago. So I can't overestimate the importance of relationships and treating people well and knowing who to talk to. So, but there is definitely an advantage to having a local government. There's some things where the city of Tucker has been wise to lift the burden from DeKalb and allow DeKalb to manage some things that they've managed very well, and allow zoning and some other things that really need a local focus to be done here locally.
A lot of what I say is we're building more roads, more roads, more roads. And society changes when things get that hard and that expensive. And, you know, the technologies that are being driven today are going to allow us to do many things remotely that we don't do.
Right.
And the younger people catch on to that very rapidly. People up in my age group, by and large, don't. I got involved with the medical area when Zell Miller had the Georgia statewide academic and medical system. And that was really advanced. And he said, we're way ahead of the game, too early, but you got to get on board sometime. Right. And I think rather than thinking about how many more buildings and bridges and things we can build, think about how this is going to get factored out. And start talking to people that are in the schools, the younger people, and see how they're doing things. You know, we have a daughter in Texas. I don't call her up on the phone, I text her, text. You know, and she's in California, she's heading overseas, it doesn't matter, text. It used to be the long distance call, you know, get off, you know, they're charging us, it's long distance.
Right.
So, I mean, it's, when I see all these roads, I have to wonder if maybe society's going to change rather than spending all that money on roads and bridges.
Well, I think you're right. And so the reason I brought those images is because it relates to the whole footprint of what we're talking about. But in downtown Tucker, one of the grants that we received, we're looking at the alleys. And we're looking at creating block sizes and reactivating the alleys and having pedestrian access through the middle of city blocks and having a more pedestrian-friendly, walkable community. Because you're right, people don't want to drive, but when they do, they need to get there. But yeah, we're looking at all that as well. Exactly. So, good thought. Yes?
One of the things that you showed was like some different bus stops along the top of 285. And like the bus sits up that one from Northlake Mall to Doraville.
Right.
And the bus would go back and forth and all. What if you were to go from Northlake Mall to California, you have to go to each of the different bus stations and try to move?
Now, it'd be just like when, you know, there's some MARTA trains that you get on them and it goes all the way to the end of the line and some only go part way. It'd be the same thing. So you just get on the right one that goes where you want to go. And of course, on game day, there'd be more. You'd go where you want to go.
So, we've talked a lot about all of the things going on around Northlake, and I wonder if there's any buzz or any rumblings about North DeKalb Mall. Is there anything in the works for development in that area?
So you may have seen the annexation proposal that Clarkson put out.
Yes.
Very aggressive and included that. The mayor of Clarkson backed off on that. He retreated pretty quickly.
He did, yeah.
That's a little surprising. I'm not hearing anything there. Of course, when Costco didn't go
No, that
there,
was disappointing.
people said, oh, is it going to come to Northlake? No. Unfortunately, Costco will not be coming. One thing I can tell you about the area is, so downtown Tucker is what's called a livable center initiative through the Atlanta Regional Commission. When Atlanta got all the bad air quality, the federal government said, okay, you got to fix this. And so they gave money to the Atlanta Regional Commission to say, you got to get people out of their cars. So again, to say no roads, but to get people out of their cars. So downtown Tucker is an LCI, Northlake is an LCI, but the Toco Hills area along North Shore Hills Road is also an LCI. And so what that means is you're on the short list to get federal funding through the Atlanta Regional Commission for sidewalks, for trails, for studies, for all those such things. So that's right there in the footprint. And that's something that can be taken advantage of to get some good connection going on over in this area.
Didn't mean to monopolize this, but I'm going to ask a macro question, which is probably a dangerous thing. But my question is that with the projections that are going out to places like Gwinnett County, 55% of ours is bigger, you said, Matthew, is that going to then force kind of a change in the zoning and planning within communities within the perimeter? Because right now there seems to be the push of the condos and the apartments, particularly the condos, I believe, and encouraging, in effect, more density to the center area of, downtown Atlanta and the livelihood. And does that sort of run contrary to this idea that we're moving farther out in Gwinnett County and Forsyth County and Cobb County because of density? Or will this cause a change of planning and zoning? Maybe curtailing density development.
That gets back to what John's talking about, advocating for a city, right?
Yes.
Because if you don't pay attention to the zoning, you can mess stuff up in a hurry. And so just because something is zoned properly for density, a developer can come and can have a great plan and can say, yeah, but I want to change that. Everything built today is going to outlive just about everybody in this room, me included. So you affect a parcel here, you affect a parcel there, you end up changing the fabric of how things are laid out. So it's really important to have folks that are paying attention to that. And so we've had some issues where I was very glad that folks locally were looking at this and I could go get them in the car and drive out and say, hey, look at this, this doesn't make sense. They're asking for an exception, but here's what that exception is going to do. And so with DeKalb County, the challenge is they're looking at the whole county. They're looking at everything, and they don't have the focus. For example, the City Council of Tucker, they're driving the streets every day, right? They live in the neighborhoods, they know the area. So for zoning, there's a lot of strength in having that managed here locally. because everything just gets reported. It doesn't mean you get everything you want, right? It doesn't mean that everything comes out the way you want, but you have a stronger voice, and there's a little bit more accountability because the people who approve that building, they have to live next to it.
So, quick question, your growth projections kind of talk about DeKalb County as a whole and what percentage growth. Would it be fair to assume that the zip codes within the Vista growth footprint are probably going to experience a larger percentage of that growth or a smaller percentage of that growth? Because DeKalb's such a huge area with different characteristics. I guess I would expect our growth level to be probably more akin to the Gwinnett side, or the Gwinnett projections.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. So I didn't bring the data, but it does break it down on where some of those things are going to be regionally. But if you think about Oak Grove, for example, you know, unless something crazy happens, the density is not going to get much more dense than what it is. You're going to get a bigger house on a smaller lot, right? But it's not going to be denser. Now, when you look at what Brookhaven's doing with their annexations, right, and they're building higher density, they're knocking down existing buildings and they're building higher density along 285 or along 85. That makes sense along expressway. So it just depends on how far does that go along. So you really have to look at the existing zoning, and you have to be able to keep that density from increasing. You have to be able to look at it and build a case to prevent it if you're trying to prevent it. For example, a developer came in and rezoned a neighborhood next to me. It was R85, which is pretty large, and he's in the zone that got it rezoned for townhomes. He was able to do that by looking at all the other rezonings in the area and then telling that county they knew that if they didn't approve it, he's going to sue them. So they approved it. Right? So sometimes you get local municipalities who approve things and you think that was crazy. Well, yeah, it was crazy, but if they hadn't approved it, they'd have gotten sued. It cost them $2 million they were lost anyway. So, all right, I will shut up.
Yeah. Everybody, thank you. And one of the reasons why I wanted to quickly just point out, one of the reasons why we wanted Matthew to come speak about this is because, and you're free to go look at it, in the Vista Grove Charter, the bill that has been presented to our legislators to create a city in the area that we are in now has a CID in it. So what we're proposing is that we actually have the legislative work done up front, where we create a CID as part of the creation of the city, and you can see why. I mean, you can see this is real urban planning. This is what businesses and communities want and need. I think my daughter calls it relative distance. So basically what that means is that you may be very close to something in distance, but you're really you're really very far away if you can't get to it, if traffic is bad. You know, it's one of the things we discussed at other meetings. They were going to propose building a Briarcliff High School or a Cross Keys High School where the old Briarcliff location was. That's maybe close to people, but extremely difficult to get to. And so these are the type of things that a CID takes into consideration. They're trying to help people get to the businesses, make it easy for them to get to the businesses. So this presentation was amazing, and we really appreciate Matthew presenting tonight. So, and he's walking out. So there you go. He didn't need to hear any of what I was saying. So what I wanted to talk about real quickly, I know some of you have come here to find out a little bit about what's going on with the Vista Grove Initiative. And before I do that, I wanted to stop and just say thank you to the Greek Church. The Annunciation has provided this incredible facility to us several times at no charge. They give us drinks. It's just, they really are a community partner. Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. I just want to make sure that the shout out to them. So just to get a couple of brief updates and some community updates real quick. Obviously everybody knows, maybe everybody doesn't know, but the legislature's kicked in again, and we are actively trying to get them to help create a bill or some legislation that would give us a chance to have a city in this area. If you haven't looked at the map, go to the website and look at it. We met with all the legislators. They have given us a lot of positive feedback. And we do believe that there's a great chance that they're going to do something for us this legislative session. Right now, I really don't have any specifics. just that they're working on it. So that's where we're at right now with the legislative process. I will tell you that there are multiple ways to create a city, and the way that they do it, really, we don't know yet. They can change the map. They can do it through local legislation. They can do it through a typical bill that goes to the House and Senate. Right now, we just don't. We just don't know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. We just are hoping and praying that they do something, because you can see, you know, Tucker's relationship with Northlake, how awesome that can be for everybody in the community. So that's the legislative update to this point. There were a couple of other things that I wanted to mention, and I just wanted to get this out because I don't think we've really explained it. One is that DeKalb County had a CVI study, which is a Carl Vinson Institute study, that discussed the impact of new cities on the county as a whole. And it showed, it was kind of funny, it was sort of showing some of the negative impacts on the county in terms of monetary tax dollars they would receive if we became a city. I actually viewed it the opposite way. I couldn't believe it, actually. It was more of, oh my God, we're paying all this money and we're getting this much back for our area. And so for me, it was very eye-opening. As an example, in our area, and this was the Vista area, we are contributing about $4.5 million a year for parks and recreation facilities in DeKalb County. We're receiving about $300,000 back that is actually being spent in our area. The police portion of it was much bigger. Now, that's not relevant because, and I think many of you, some of you don't know this, but we have discussed, and we're proposing that at least at the beginning of the creation of this city, that we partner with the DeKalb County Police. It's a model that we hope will lessen the impact of us becoming a city on DeKalb County as a whole. We've seen it work in Tucker. I will say this, the other cities that have their own police forces, I think they love them there too, but we feel comfortable with the police chief in our area. We met with Officer Patrick, we met with other individuals with DeKalb County, and the model can work. And the way it works is that you create what's called an intergovernmental agreement with the police force, and it's usually a 10-year agreement, but you can get out of it if it's not working. It's usually about a 1 to 2 year period for you to terminate the agreement. But we wanted to start with that model to see if it would help ameliorate a little bit of the impact of the city on the county, and at the same time keep a lot of continuity with what we're getting now. In fact, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there have been a lot more police cars in our area recently, and one of the reasons is because we asked them to have a better presence in our area. We noticed that they weren't having that lots of people had commented, I don't see the police, I don't see anybody, parked on the side of the street. The only time I see the police is when they're hiding out to give me a ticket, And so now we're seeing a lot more police in our area, and it's not just, simple stuff like when they're doing their paperwork. Hey, just park your car on a street so people can see you, so that it discourages crime in the area. And so that's just a little bit of what's happened just because of these conversations that we've been having with DeKalb County. What else was important? And I don't have the dates in front of me, but you guys go online. DeKalb County is having about 3 forums, I think at the end of the month, January and February, so that you can go to these forums and you can tell them what's bothering you about the lack of parks in your area. So they're having, it's like a parks forum that DeKalb County is doing. We highly encourage anybody who wants more parks, more recreation areas, more rec houses or senior homes, all that type of thing, senior facilities, all of those things we think are things that can be improved in our area. And if you want to put your 2 cents in, you should go to those meetings. And I think, Amy, maybe you can look that up and give me those dates. I think they're like February 4th and 5th, and maybe January 29th. Oh yeah, you got those dates.
The first one is next Wednesday.
Okay. The 26th.
Rec Center, from 6 to 8.
From 6 to 8. There we go. So the first one's January 26th. from 6 to 8. And actually, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I have 4 children, and, you know, it's really hard to find a park. It's really hard to, you know, we kind of, you have to search around to find a really good facility. There's the Masonville Park. There's some parks up in Tucker, but if you actually look at our area, there's really a dearth of parks, which is really the reason why they only spend $300,000 on Parks and Recs in our area. And we are obviously donating a lot more money to the pot and not getting a lot out of it. And a little bit that's on us. We need to fight for with the Cap County to get more parks. Yes.
I mean, I didn't catch where that forum was being held.
It's at the Masonville Park. It's in the, you know where the Masonville Park is? I think there's a building in there that they're having the meeting at. So yeah, that's something that would be really important for everybody to attend. Yes, sir.
Well, I noticed, I'm not familiar with this, but I noticed that last year at the end of March, on 28th, the bill 671.
Yes.
The growth was presented.
Yes.
And it's now, it's an active bill this year.
It is an active bill.
The bill you're talking about is going through the second reading.
So that bill is out there, right? It has gone through a second reading. I will tell you that we think we don't know, but we do think our DeKalb delegation is probably going to modify that bill and do something else a little bit with it, but they're going to piggyback on it. They have to, because typically they don't have to, but the House and the Senate have rules where they want you to present a bill in 1 year of a biennium of the legislature. So the legislature, just to explain, has a 2-year biennium. Last year was the first year of it. This year is the second year of it. And bills can carry forward from one legislative session to the next. So that bill is still out there, and it could very well end up being the bill. At this point, we're waiting for our DeKalb delegation to give us more direction before we say that that's going to be the bill for certain. Yeah. Any other questions about the legislative? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
The CAB legislators, they have waffled on this for about 2 years now.
Yes.
What do we have to do? What political clout do we have to give them?
Okay, so let me tell you what we can do, okay? And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the forces that may be driving them that are separate from what we can do. So what we can do is, look at, we put these on your chair. Go find out who your legislator is. I'll bet you that 50% of the people in this room can't tell me who their House representative is and who their senator is. You know why? Because I didn't know who my House rep was and my senator was. Now I know that it's Mary Margaret Oliver and Elena Parent, but I did not know that. And I have a LLM in tax. I'm an attorney. I mean, I have as high an education as you could possibly get at this point. And I didn't even know who my legislators were. So I'm guessing that a lot of you don't know who your legislators are either. Now, if you do, write them immediately. If you don't, look on your flyer here. It tells you how to find out who they are. If you go to this, it's called OpenStates. I think there's a website on the flyer. You just type in your address, and it'll tell you immediately who your legislator is and what their email address is. And one thing that's really important is when you write them, make sure they know that you are in their district. They care a lot that you're their constituent, okay? They don't care so much if you're just randomly writing them and you're not voting for them. So they know you're voting for them, and you put your address and you say, I am one of your constituents and I want a city. Please help get this done. Well, I want this to grow. Yeah.
The last time I heard a bunch of them speak at one of these meetings at the town hall, they specifically asked us to tell them why we want a city.
Yeah.
And what we want out of a city.
Exactly. Well, and we've given some talking points on these cards, and I think a lot of people have a sense of community. There are lots of different reasons. I mean, let's face it, there are economic reasons, there are business reasons. There's the reason I'm in this is because I wanted sidewalks for my kids to walk to school. I mean, that was really the reason I wanted it. But other people have other reasons. For instance, Brookhaven and Tucker have lower millage rates. So maybe people would like, a better bang for their buck with their taxes. Some people love these CIDs, and they love the fact that Brookhaven now has all these great businesses and shops and multi-use places that are all like kind of bunched up together that provide a great urban environment for people to live. Some people want controlled zoning. They want more local control so that we don't get higher density unnecessarily, or we don't have the wrong type of zoning put into our area. And of course, that's what's great about the city, is that it's local and you have way more control, way more say in what happens. You can go to a city hall meeting and find out, I mean, it's very transparent. Tucker is extraordinarily transparent. You go online right now and find out exactly what their budget is. And by the way, just so you know, we are a much more wealthy area in terms of like total tax revenue than Tucker is. And they're doing an incredible job with what they have. They're before it's said and done, their area, the property values are probably going to go up because of how great how great the area is going to be. So, but right now, your property values as a whole in Vista Grove are higher than they are in Tucker. So we have the revenue. It's just a matter of how to direct it, and it's a matter of being efficient with it. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
If Vista Grove does go through, would they still offer the senior school tax exemption?
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't lose any exemptions. That's an important point. There's some people who get scared tax. You get all the same homestead exemptions, all the same senior exemptions. They're actually written right into the charter. So there's continuity.
The charter also includes a freeze on your property evaluation, right?
Yes, absolutely. So all the same, so all the same rules and all the same benefits you were getting in unincorporated DeKalb, you would get with the city, except for the fact that you actually, I can't guarantee it, I'm not the government, but in many of the new cities, the millage rate has gone down because what they found is they can do the same services, actually better services and more of them for less money. So,
What's the drop dead date on the legislature? When do they have to come forward with?
So it's going to happen. So when it happens, it's going to happen very soon. It's going to happen very soon. So they've got until I think it's about March 20th or so. March. They've got a couple of months to get it done. And again, like I said, how they do it exactly, we are not exactly privy to at this point. I don't, whether they do it as a bill or whether they do it as local legislation or whether, these are, exactly how they do it. They haven't told us. We do know that they've been very positive when they talk to us. We do know that there have been talks among legislators about our situation. And that's what's going to get to that. We talked about what we can do, but so there's some political forces here that are also moving about, right? So everybody's aware of Brookhaven annexing various areas, right? And that, Brookhaven just annexed Vista Park. They're proposing annexing the commercial at I-85, the Chick-fil-A, the Target. These are all things that are happening right now in front of us. And also, by the way, I don't know if y'all are aware, but there's a $1.3 billion CHOA hospital development that is going to be built where the current CHOA is. And it's going to have enough hospital rooms to house every sick child in the entire Southeast. So you can imagine the number of jobs and employees that are going to be needed to hire for that, and the strain it's going to put on our area because people are going to need to live someplace, and the traffic is going to be horrific. So these are all things that our politicians are seeing now, right? And so they're seeing Brookhaven coming. They're seeing how successful Brookhaven has been and how aggressive the areas around them have been about, hey, look, we need to be part of this. So one of the things that's going on now is that we think that our legislators kind of see it. One way or another, you're going to become a city. One way or another, it may not be this year, it may not be tomorrow, but one day you're either going to be Vista Grove community or some variation of that, or you're going to be part of Brookhaven, you're going to be part of Chamblee, you're going to be part of Tucker, or you're going to be part of Doraville. That's what's coming down the pipeline. And by the way, the worst case scenario, and not to be a complete scare tactic about this, is that all the big commercial gets taken, it will be annexed by Chamblee, it will be annexed by Brookhaven, and they just leave the residential out. Now, as you all well know, when the commercial is taken out, that reduces the tax base for DeKalb County. And so for DeKalb County to maintain its services, they're going to have to raise your taxes. That's the only way, or cut your services. Those are the only two ways that you can handle losing that commercial revenue. So, and there's one other big thing too. This is the other big factor is DeKalb County knows that Brookhaven has its own police force. It knows that Chamblee has its own police force, and that's going to be a huge hit to the DeKalb County budget as those areas are carved out. We have proposed to maintain the police force so that it wouldn't hit DeKalb County as much. So in our perspective, what we're proposing actually is the best case scenario for DeKalb County. It actually helps everybody in the area. If we become a city, it helps us. We have more local control. We can do some of the CID stuff. But at the same time, it also is very beneficial to DeKalb County. And, you know, and I'll stand by that. This is a partnership. City, county doesn't go away. They're still gonna have to provide us services. So we're gonna need to work with them. And we're proposing to work with them in a way that is the most fluid and most profitable way for all of us and for the entire county. Whereas if we continue to have this Wild West annexation, where people just say, well, I gotta be a part of this new city, well, it's not going to be like that. It's gonna be very damaging to the county, it's gonna be damaging to the people who are not in the incorporated areas. So this is kind of our perspective on it, that this is something, we need to get it done, guys. It's either choose your own adventure or let the chips fall where they may with Brookhaven and Chamberlain and Doraville. Yes, sir.
You were already saying in
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
What are those forces that are opposing, the county, that's pushing the county to not necessarily reinforce the idea of cityhood for us? You were saying.
And I understand them completely. I have a lot of respect for the people who have been, nervous about cities. There's a lot of reason, that, if you have lots of bad examples of local governments. Sometimes some people are worried about ethics. They're worried, oh, I'm going to have more politicians, and therefore they call it an extra layer of government. There's really not an extra layer of government. What it is to have a few extra politicians. We actually laugh about that. That's actually one of the great reasons to have a city. It's like, would you rather go to the DMV located imagine if there was only one DMV that you could go to. No. And instead, you want there to be more of them. You want there to be a kiosk, maybe where you can just go get your driver's license at the shopping center. Make it as easy as possible for you. This is bringing government to you. It's not making it more, it's not more government, it's actually less government. I mean, what's more onerous on you? Going and standing in a 5-hour line at some center office down, 50 miles from here, or going to a local area, a local office, and being in a line that lasts 10 minutes. So for us, this is about less government, not more government. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned Showa and Vista. Are they committed to Vista Grove, or are they kind of still evaluating?
So I laugh about it. They're really technically part of Brookhaven, but what it's really going to be is just Emory. Let's be clear about that, because they don't pay taxes. And, for the most part, these facilities are tax exempt. So it's really Emory wants to be Brookhaven because it's so much easier for them to get their building permits and for them to do what they want to do. They get a lot more resistance when they have to work directly with the County. So they wanted to be part of Brookhaven. They're part of it. Brookhaven likes it. It gives them some cachet. But one of the reasons why Brookhaven is so in favor of all these new chiller buildings being built and all the facilities being built there is because it's on the other side of I-85. It's actually going to affect us, right? It's not affecting them. They get to stand beyond where their city center isn't really affected by all this. On the other hand, we are going to be very affected by it. So these are some of the reasons why, hey, look, Vista Hills didn't get voted in for various reasons, but there was that would have been all part of the Vista Hills, and now it's not. So we're having to deal with the consequences of that at this point. Having said that, I still feel like the necessity of a city in our area is still very much alive and well. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm pretty concerned about that, because when we built Vista Hills, there was a lot of commercial properties on all the corners, and they are all being annexed, so what's left in our footprint?
A ton. Yeah, a ton. And not only that, but there's a ton of unused space, right, that can be developed, which is not being developed right now. If you go around the footprint, we have, if you look at our CBI study, for instance, losing Northlake Mall is only costing us about $400,000 a year. Reality is that there's still plenty of commercial in that area that would be part of us, and there's the opportunity to improve our commercial. Yes, ma'am.
But as is explained in our CBI report, which is kind of down in the weeds, so it's hard to find, the tax-based strength of this footprint is not commercial property. It's home value.
That's right. We have very high home values. So I will tell you this, that financially, we're not concerned at all about ours. I mean, if you look at Tucker, their city is getting much less revenue than what we would provide, and they're doing a whole lot with it. So it's not something that's finances is not the concern for this area. I'll tell you what the real concern for this area is cohesiveness. And there's a lot of different areas that we have here, you know, lots of different neighborhood associations. And you know, I've been to a lot of them in this process, and I can say, really, we're all very much the same. But people feel really attached to their local neighborhood, and some neighborhoods, you know, are more pro-city than others, and that's just one of the problems we face. But I will say this: I do believe there is a consensus among the people I've talked to that something's going to happen, and that we need to move forward with this as soon as humanly possible. Yes, ma'am.
Is the charter online on your website?
The charter is online, yes, and so is the map, and so is a meets and bounds description of the whole area. That's right. Yes.
John, would you think it's a great idea for everyone here to stay connected to our website or just to?
Yes, go to vistagrove.org and go on the website and look at the charter, look at the CBI study. Yes, Clarice?
And one other quick thing, that is a fabulous link that's on your banner, that open space. Just as John said, if you type in your full address, not only does it give you the representative, but there's a hot button for email. So you can just literally click that button, type the email, send it, 30 seconds, you're done, and they know what's important to you. And if you've already done it last week, do it this week, and then do it again next week.
Yeah, do it again. They want to hear from you. Yeah, they're working on something, but it doesn't hurt. It does not hurt to let them know how much you care. Okay, before we adjourn, I just wanted to make sure that, that you guys know that we have some signs over here. We have T-shirts. We have a petition. Come sign your name, give us your email address, and you can stay informed. We try not to bombard you with emails, but we like to send out an email every couple of weeks. And right now is a real busy time, so we're hoping for some good updates very soon. And hopefully something that we can share with the public shortly on all this. But like I said, what you can do is write your legislator, and that's the #1 thing you can do. So that's it. All right. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.